Did you ever think your slice of paradise could turn into someone else's construction freeway? Without so much as a please? That's exactly what happened to me, Jack Turner, on a crisp April morning in 2025, when the rumble of bulldozers shattered the quiet of my 10-acre retreat in suburban Virginia. I'm a 52-year-old retired contractor, widowed, and I bought this land 5 years ago to escape the chaos of my old life. My private gravel road, 1,200 feet of hard-earned peace, connects my property to the county highway. I've mowed its edges, patched its ruts, and even chased off joyriding teens to keep it mine. So, imagine my shock when I saw a convoy of heavy machinery tearing through my road like it was their personal playground. Started at 6 a.m. I was halfway through my coffee, still in my flannel shirt, when the ground shook like a freight train was passing. I stepped onto my porch, expecting maybe a delivery truck gone rogue. Instead, I saw 3 bulldozers and a flatbed loaded with rebar churning up my gravel, kicking dust into the sunrise. My first thought? Who the hell's lost? My second? This is no accident. I grabbed my boots, stormed down the path, and flagged down a guy in a hard hat who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. This is private property, I shouted over the engine roar. He shrugged, handed me a crumpled flyer and said, "Talk to the HOA. The HOA. Those 3 letters alone could make a saint curse. My neighborhood's run by the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, a clipboard-wielding cabal led by Karen Wells, a 60-something busybody with a perm as tight as her grip on power. Karen's been after me since I moved in, fined me $200 for a non-compliant mailbox. It was navy blue, not black, hassled me over my shed's unauthorized paint. But this was war. The flyer was a vague notice about community improvements, claiming my road would be temporarily accessed for a new subdivision. No signature, no date, just HOA letterhead and enough jargon to choke a lawyer. I dug through my files, heart pounding, and found my deed. Private road, no easement, exclusive ownership to Jack Turner. Crystal clear. Karen had no right. I called her, figuring it was a mix-up. "Jack," she purred through the phone, her voice dripping with fake syrup. "It's for the community's benefit. Progress, you know? Progress." My road was crumbling under 20-ton machines, and she called it progress? When I quoted my deed, she laughed. A sharp, grating cackle. "The board's already approved it. You'll get used to it." "Approved what?" I pressed, but she hung up. That's when I knew. This wasn't a mistake. It was a power grab. Now, let's pause for a second. Picture this. Your property, your sanctuary, suddenly hijacked by a pack of bureaucrats and their bulldozer buddies. What would you do if someone tried to turn your land into their personal freeway? Drop your predictions in the comments below. I'm dying to hear your thoughts, because I'll tell you, I was ready to fight. But first, I needed answers. I drove to the county records office, a dusty building where dreams of justice go to wait in line. The clerk, a guy named Hank who'd worked with me on old construction permits, pulled the HOA's recent filings. Buried in a stack of zoning requests was a sketchy access agreement tied to a developer named Vince Russo, who was building a 50-home subdivision behind my land. No mention of my deed, no proof of a vote, just Karen's signature and a date that didn't add up. Hank leaned in, lowering his voice. "Jack, this smells like a backroom deal. Russo's got deep pockets, and Karen's got sticky fingers." My gut churned. This wasn't just about my road, it was about money, power, and screwing over anyone in their way. Back home, I walked my road, now scarred with tire tracks and spilled oil. I thought about my late wife, Ellen. We'd dreamed of this place together before cancer stole her away. She'd loved the quiet, the way the oaks whispered at dusk. This land was all I had left of her, and I'd be damned if Karen's HOA mafia turned it into a construction shortcut. I remembered a fight from years back. Karen tried to fine me for excessive firewood stacks, claiming they lowered property values. I'd won by proving my stacks were within code, but it taught me something. Karen played dirty, and her rules were as flexible as her ethics. That night, I pored over the HOA bylaws, 200 pages of soul-crushing legalese. Buried in Section 14.2 was a clause about community access. but it required a 2/3 vote and written consent from affected owners. They'd skipped that part. My blood boiled, but I grinned too. Karen thought she could steamroll me with a smile and a bulldozer, but I was already planning my counterattack. I'd built homes from the ground up, navigated zoning boards tougher than her, and I wasn't about to let some HOA tyrant rewrite my deed. As the sun set, casting long shadows over my battered road, I made a vow. I'd stop them, no matter what it took. But how? That's where things got interesting, and I had no idea just how deep this rabbit hole went. Karen thought she could outsmart me with a single letter, but I had a trick up my sleeve. After that bulldozer invasion on my private road, I wasn't just mad. I was on a mission. That April morning in 2025, with my Virginia gravel road still scarred from heavy machinery, I decided to fight fire with facts. Karen Wells, the HOA's queen bee, and her developer buddy were about to learn I don't roll over easy. First stop, the Willow Creek HOA meeting. I walked into the community center. Think fluorescent lights and folding chairs that creak like they're judging you. Clutching my deed like a shield, Karen was up front, her perm gleaming under the lights, flanked by her board of yes-men. The room smelled of stale coffee and self-importance. I waited my turn, ignoring whispers from neighbors who'd already pegged me as the grumpy loner. When I stood, I held up my deed and said, "This says my road's private, no easement. So why are bulldozers tearing it up?" The room went quiet. Karen's smile didn't budge, but her eyes narrowed. "Jack," she said, like she was scolding a kid. "The board approved a temporary access clause years ago. It's in the bylaws. For the community's good." Temporary access clause? That was news to me and my deed. I pressed her for details. "When was the vote? Where's the record?" She waved a manicured hand, saying, "It's all documented, Jack. Don't make a fuss." The board nodded like bobbleheads, and Vince Russo, the developer, sat in the back, smirking in a suit that screamed, "I own this room." I sat down, fuming but not fooled. Karen's documentation was as real as a $3 bill, and I was going to prove it. Back home, I turned my dining room into a war room. Deed, bylaws, and a laptop humming with county records. My road, a 1,200-foot lifeline to my 10-acre sanctuary, was getting chewed up daily. Gravel scattered, ruts deep enough to twist an ankle, oil stains spreading like a bad rash. Each crunch of a tire was a jab at my pride. I'd built my life here after losing Ellen, my wife, to cancer 5 years ago. This land was my anchor, and Karen's crew was trying to drag it away. I called Hank, my buddy at the county records office, who'd tipped me off about the HOA's sketchy filing. He sent me a PDF of their so-called access agreement. It was a joke, 2 pages, no signatures from affected owners, and a date that predated my purchase. Worse, it named Vince Russo's company, Russo Developments, as the beneficiary. A quick search on Vince turned up a goldmine. He was Karen's cousin, twice removed, with a trail of lawsuits for cutting corners on projects. The subdivision they were building, 50 cookie-cutter homes on what used to be a horse farm, was a cash cow, and my road was their free shortcut. Hank chuckled over the phone. "Jack, they're banking on you folding." Russo's got the HOA in his pocket. That lit a fire. I drove to my road's edge, where Vince's crew was unloading more rebar. The foreman, a guy with a sunburned neck and zero patience, told me to take it up with the boss. So I did. I tracked Vince to his trailer office, a shiny prefab parked on the subdivision site. He was all teeth and handshake, offering me coffee like we were old pals. I cut to the chase. "My road's private. You're trespassing. Stop, or I'm calling the sheriff." Vince leaned back, smirking. "Jack, let's be reasonable. Name a price for access. We'll make it worth your while." A price? My road wasn't for sale. It was my home, my memory of Ellen, my damn right. I countered $50,000 upfront, plus repairs and a legal contract. He laughed, a greasy sound. "That's cute. Karen warned me you'd be a problem. We'll just keep going. Joey's got this covered." That's when it got ugly. Karen sent me a certified letter citing eminent domain as a backup plan if I didn't cooperate. Eminent domain? For a private subdivision? I wasn't a lawyer, but I dealt with enough zoning boards to know that was a bluff. The letter also reminded me of fines for obstructing community progress. $500 a week if I didn't play ball. It was extortion dressed up in Times New Roman. I called my old contractor buddy, Mike, who'd fought an HOA over a fence permit. He laughed bitterly. "Jack, they're betting you'll cave because legal fights are expensive. Get proof they're breaking rules. Then hit hard." Proof was my next step. I spent hours online cross-referencing Virginia property codes. Code section 55.1 to 1800 was clear. Private roads can't be used without owner consent, HOA or not. The HOA's bylaws, which I'd slogged through, required a public vote for access changes. Never happened. I even found a 2023 case in Fairfax County where a homeowner sued an HOA for unauthorized land use and won $75,000. My ace in the hole? Hank slipped me a zoning report showing Vince's permits were expedited with missing surveys. Sloppy. Illegal. Perfect. But the machines kept coming. Every morning, I'd wake to the grind of engines, my road looking more like a war zone. I tried reasoning one last time, left a voicemail for Karen, offering a meeting to sort it out. She didn't call back. Instead, Vince's crew parked a backhoe on my road overnight, blocking my gate. That was their answer, pure arrogance. I stood there at dusk, staring at the trespassing hunk of metal, and something clicked. I wasn't just fighting for gravel, I was fighting for control, for the life I'd built after Ellen. Karen and Vince thought they owned me. They were wrong. That's when I started thinking bigger. Hank had mentioned a loophole, a way to flip this whole mess on its head. My road was the key, but not how they thought. There was a piece of land, a forgotten lot, that could change everything. If I played my cards right, I'd make them regret ever crossing my property line. But first, I needed to be sure, and that meant digging deeper than Karen's lies. I found the one piece of land they didn't control, and I snatched it right from under their noses. After Karen Wells and her developer cousin Vince Russo turned my private road into their personal construction lane, I was done playing nice. I'd had enough of the Willow Creek HOA's dirty tricks. My gravel road, my sanctuary, was a mess of ruts and oil, and Karen's smug, community benefit excuse was wearing thinner than her bylaws. But while they thought they had me cornered, I was about to change the game. The idea hit me late one night, after hours of poring over county maps and zoning records. Hank, my buddy at the records office, had dropped a hint during our last call. "Jack, check the junction where your road hits the highway. That lot's the choke point for Russo's whole project." I pulled up the plat map on my laptop, coffee going cold, and there it was, a 1-acre parcel, labeled Lot 17A, sitting like a gatekeeper between my road and the county highway. It was the only legal access point for Vince's 50-home subdivision. Whoever owned that lot owned the keys to the kingdom. And right now, it wasn't Vince or the HOA. It was some absentee landlord in Florida who hadn't set foot on it in a decade. My pulse raced. If I could buy Lot 17A, I'd hold the trump card. No more bulldozers tearing up my gravel. No more Karen waving her clipboard like a scepter. I control access, and they'd have to beg me to get through. But it was a gamble, big money, big risk. I'd saved a decent nest egg from my contracting days, but this could wipe out half of it. I thought of Ellen, my late wife, who'd loved this land's quiet. She'd have said, "Jack, you built houses from nothing. Build a win here." That settled it. I was all in. First, I had to move fast. Hank tipped me off that Vince was sniffing around the same lot, but his company was slow, bogged down by paperwork and those dodgy permits I'd already spotted. I called the landlord, a guy named Phil Gorman, who sounded like he was halfway through a margarita in Key West. "Yeah, Lot 17A, he mumbled. "Been meaning to sell it. Taxes are a pain." I asked his price, $85,000. Steep for a scrubby acre of dirt, but I knew its value to Vince was 10 times that. I offered $80,000 cash, no contingencies, closing in a week. Phil didn't even haggle. "Deal," he said. "Send the contract." Getting the money was the hard part. I had $60,000 liquid, but the rest meant dipping into my retirement fund and taking a small home equity loan. I drove to my bank, a local branch where the tellers still knew my name, and sat with Linda, the loan officer. She raised an eyebrow when I explained the plan. "Jack, you sure? That's a lot for a patch of grass." I grinned. "It's not the grass. It's the gate." She shook her head but pushed the paperwork through. By Friday, I had the funds wired to Phil's escrow. Hank pulled strings to expedite the title search, no liens, no clouds. Clean as a whistle. While the sale was in motion, I played dumb. Vince's crew kept grinding down my road. Oblivious. Karen sent another letter, this time threatening a special assessment if I kept obstructing their access. I tossed it in a drawer, laughing. Obstructing? Oh, Karen, you ain't seen nothing yet. To cover my tracks, I hired Tom, a surveyor I'd worked with on old projects, to double-check Lot 17 as boundaries. He staked it out in a day, confirming every inch was mine once the deed recorded. Better yet, he flagged something else. Vince's construction was violating county setback rules. His equipment pads were too close to my road's property line. That was ammo for later, and I tucked it away like a loaded gun. The deed came through on a Tuesday, delivered by a bored courier who had no idea he'd just handed me a nuke. I stood on Lot 17A at dusk, a weedy triangle of dirt with a clear view of my road and Vince's half-built subdivision. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. I felt a rush I hadn't known since Ellen's last good days, when we'd walk this land and dream. Back then, I'd been a fighter, outbidding rivals, outsmarting inspectors. Losing her dulled that edge, but now, it was back sharper than ever. Karen and Vince didn't suspect a thing. I saw Karen at the gas station that week, all smiles, asking if I'd come around on the road issue. I shrugged, said, "Still thinking." Her smirk said she thought I was beaten. Vince, meanwhile, was bragging to the local paper about his game-changing subdivision, promising luxury living by Christmas. Luxury. With my gravel in their treads? Good luck, pal. I kept my plan quiet, even from Mike, my contractor buddy, who'd been cheering me on. The fewer who knew, the better. But I wasn't just sitting on Lot 17A. I started sketching ideas using my old drafting skills. A gate? A fence? Something to stop Vince cold. I'd built retaining walls tougher than his ego. Whatever I chose, it'd be legal, ironclad, and in his face. Tom's survey gave me another edge. The county could shut down Vince's work if I reported those setback violations. I held off, saving it for the right moment. Timing was everything. Every night, I'd walk my road, now a moonscape of tire tracks. It hurt, seeing what I'd maintained for Ellen turned to chaos. But owning Lot 17A was like holding a royal flush. I just had to play it right. Karen thought she'd won with her fake votes and forged permits. Vince thought his cash made him untouchable. They were about to hit a wall. Maybe not today, but soon. And when they did, I'd be the one locking the gate. They thought they owned my road, so I built a wall they'd never forget. And by late April 2025, I'd turned the tables on Karen Wells and her developer cousin Vince Russo. After snagging Lot 17A, that 1-acre choke point at the junction of my private road and the county highway, I held the key to their whole subdivision scheme. My gravel road, 1,200 feet of sacred ground, was still a mess from their bulldozers, but now I had the power to stop them cold. And I wasn't just going to stop them, I was going to make them choke on their own arrogance. The plan was simple but brutal. A barrier. Not some flimsy chain-link nonsense, but a statement. 10 feet of steel and concrete that screamed, Jack Turner's land, Jack Turner's rules. I'd spent years building homes, pouring foundations tougher than Vince's skull, so I knew exactly what to do. I sketched a gate on my old drafting table. Twin steel panels, welded to posts sunk 4 feet into the ground, backed by concrete pillars at 4,000 psi. It'd stop a tank, let alone Vince's backhoes. Best part? It'd sit square on Lot 17A, my lot, 100% legal. Karen could waive her bylaws all she wanted. This was my deed, my dirt, my win. I called up Mike, my old contracting buddy, who still ran a crew out of Richmond. "Jack, you're nuts," he said, laughing when I explained. "But I'm in. Let's bury these clowns." We set it for a midnight build to keep it quiet. Vince's crew knocked off at dusk, and Karen wasn't one for late-night patrols. Mike brought 3 guys, a welder, and a flatbed of materials I'd paid for up front. $12,000 worth every penny. We worked under floodlights, my generator humming like a war drum. By 3 a.m., the posts were set, concrete curing, and the gate frame locked in. By dawn, we'd hung the panels. Matte black, no frills, just pure, unyielding steel. I stood back, hands on hips, as the sun hit it. It wasn't pretty, but it was perfect. That morning, Vince's convoy rolled up at 6:15, right on schedule. I was waiting, coffee in hand, leaning against my new gate like I owned the world. The lead driver, a guy with a beard like a bird's nest, hit the brakes, confused. "What the hell's this?" he yelled. I smiled, slow and sharp. "Private property. My lot, my gate. Call your boss." He radioed Vince, and within 20 minutes, a black SUV screeched up, spitting gravel. Out stepped Vince, red-faced, with Karen in tow, her perm quivering like it knew trouble was coming. "Jack, this is illegal," she shrieked, waving a stack of papers. "You're obstructing community access." I held up my deed for Lot 17A, plus the county-stamped survey from Tom, my surveyor. "Obstructing? This is my land, Karen. Your cousin's been trespassing on my road for weeks. Want to talk legal? I've got Virginia Code Section 55.1 to 1800 right here. No unauthorized access, period." Vince tried muscling in, puffing his chest. "You think this stops me? I'll have a court order by noon." I handed him a copy of my title insurance policy, grinning. "Good luck. My lawyer's ready, and your permits? Sloppier than your concrete mix." Karen's jaw dropped. Vince sputtered. The crew just stared, tools idle. I didn't stop there. While they were throwing tantrums, I'd already faxed a complaint to the county zoning office, thanks to Tom's survey. I had proof Vince's equipment pads violated setback rules by 10 feet. By 10 a.m., a county inspector, Gloria, showed up, clipboard in hand. She wasn't one of Hank's pals, but she didn't need to be. Her tape measure didn't lie. "Mr. Russo," she said, scribbling, "this is a problem. No work until it's fixed." Vince's face went from red to purple. Karen tried her community benefit spiel, but Gloria cut her off. "Take it up with the board, ma'am. I'm issuing a stop work order." The site went silent. No engines, no clanging steel, just the wind and Karen's heavy breathing. My gate stood like a sentinel, locking their whole operation out. Neighbors started poking their heads out, some snapping photos, others whispering. I caught Old Man Carter, a guy who'd fought the HOA over his rose bushes, giving me a thumbs up from his porch. Word was spreading, and I was the guy who'd finally stuck it to the clipboard mafia. But I knew Karen wouldn't quit. That afternoon, I got an email from the HOA's lawyer, a guy named Sheldon who probably billed by the syllable. It was a cease and desist letter, claiming my gate violated some obscure covenant about aesthetic harmony. Aesthetic harmony? My road looked like a bombing range thanks to Vince, and I was the problem? I called my lawyer, Rachel, a shark who'd helped me beat a zoning dispute years ago. She laughed when I read her the letter. "Jack, they've got nothing. Your deed's ironclad, and their permits are a mess. Let's countersue for trespass and damages." I liked the sound of that. Standing on Lot 17A that evening, I ran my hand over the gate's cold steel. It wasn't just metal. It was 5 years of grief, of holding on to Ellen's memory, of refusing to let Karen and Vince take what was mine. I'd built homes for families, schools for kids, but this was personal. My road was my line in the sand, and I'd just drawn it in concrete. Karen's next move was coming. I could feel it like a storm rolling in. She'd underestimated me once, but twice? That'd be her funeral. Karen thought she could bully me into submission, but she didn't see this coming. I'm Jack Turner, a 52-year-old retired contractor in suburban Virginia, and by May 2025, I'd flipped the script on the Willow Creek HOA and their developer darling, Vince Russo. My 10-foot steel gate on Lot 17A had stopped their bulldozers dead, locking them out of my private road and their precious subdivision. Karen's smug grin was gone, replaced by panic, and Vince's luxury homes were collecting dust under a county stop work order. I'd drawn blood, but I knew the HOA's queen bee wasn't down for the count. She was plotting, and I was ready for her final swing. It started with a lawsuit. A week after my gate went up, a process server knocked on my door, handing me a summons thicker than a phone book. The HOA, backed by Vince's deep pockets, claimed my gate was an unlawful obstruction of community access and violated some dusty covenant about neighborhood cohesion. They demanded its removal, $10,000 in damages, and get this, an injunction to seize Lot 17A for public use. Public use? For Vince's McMansions? I laughed so hard I spilled my coffee. Karen was swinging wild, and her aim was off. I called Rachel, my lawyer, who'd already sniffed out the HOA's weak spots. She tore into their filing like a pit bull. "Jack, this is a scare tactic," she said. "Their covenant's unenforceable, your deed trumps it, and Lot 17 as title is airtight. Plus, their permits are a house of cards." My title insurance covered legal fees, so I told her to hit back hard. We countersued for trespass on my road, property damage, those ruts weren't cheap to fix, and emotional distress. Rachel's idea, though I chuckled at the thought. "Let's make 'em sweat," she said. Game on. While the lawyers sharpened their knives, Karen went for the court of public opinion. The HOA blasted emails to every neighbor, painting me as a selfish hermit holding progress hostage. They spread rumors. Jack's gate was a safety hazard. Jack was dodging taxes. Jack was, I kid you not, anti-community. Anti-community? I coached Little League back when Ellen was alive, built half the decks in this neighborhood. But mud sticks, and I saw it in the side eyes at the grocery store, the hushed chats at mailboxes. Some neighbors bought Karen's line. Others, like Old Man Carter, told me to keep fighting. "She fined me for my roses," he grumbled. Screw her. I wasn't about to let Karen's smear campaign win. I invited the neighborhood to a barbecue on my land. Ribs, beer, the works. Posted flyers, kept it open to all, even the Karen loyalists. About 30 showed up, sprawled across my lawn with folding chairs and kids chasing fireflies. I didn't preach, I just laid out the facts. My deed, the HOA's fake access clause, Vince's forged permits. I passed around photos of my road's damage, itemized repair estimates, $15,000 and counting. Tina, a nurse who'd clashed with Karen over her dog's leash, gasped. "They're stealing from you." By dessert, I'd flipped half the crowd. Carter slapped my back. "You're a legend, Jack." I grinned, but inside, I was tired. Fighting alone wears you down. The real showdown came at the county courthouse. A brick box that smelled of wax and worry. Rachel had dug up gold. Tom, my surveyor, testified that Vince's permits relied on a forged boundary map, shaving 10 feet off my road's buffer to dodge setback rules. The judge, a no-nonsense guy named Hawkins, leaned forward, glasses glinting. "Mr. Russo, this map's dated 2023, but the county's master plat says otherwise. Care to explain?" Vince's lawyer stammered. Vince himself looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Karen, in the gallery, gripped her purse so tight I thought it'd pop. Tom sealed it. "Their equipment's been on Mr. Turner's land from day one. Illegal, start to finish." Rachel piled on, presenting my deed, Lot 17 as title, and a stack of HOA emails, leaked by a board member sick of Karen's reign, showing she'd pushed the access clause without a vote. Hawkins didn't blink. "This is a private road, Ms. Wells. No easement, no approval. Your board's actions are, frankly, indefensible." He tossed the HOA's suit, upheld my gate, and slapped Vince with a $50,000 fine for zoning violations. My countersuit, set for a later hearing, but Rachel winked. "We've got Jack." The fallout was swift. Vince's company tanked. Creditors pulled funding, and his luxury lot sat empty. Weeds creeping in. Karen resigned as HOA president, citing health reasons. Though her real ailment was humiliation, Neighbors who'd shunned me started nodding again, some even apologizing. My gate stood tall, a black steel middle finger to anyone who'd thought they could steamroll Jack Turner. But winning wasn't all glory. Late at night, staring at my road scars, I wondered if Ellen would have liked this fight. She'd been the soft to my stubborn, the one who'd nudge me to let things go. This land was hers, too, and I'd fought to keep it ours. But at what cost? I wasn't just a guy with a gate. I was a man who'd lost his North Star and found it again in a deed. That barbecue, those neighbors laughing on my lawn. It reminded me I wasn't alone. Not really. I'd fought for more than gravel. I'd fought for home. If you loved seeing Karen and Vince eat dirt, smash that like button. Share this story with anyone who's tangled with an HOA. Drop a comment with your own nightmare tales. Subscribe, and hit the bell for more epic battles. I've got a feeling this gate's got more stories to tell.